Whoa.
Everything we've already explored and diving even deeper into the world of holiday storytelling, The Grinch, 2018, pulls us straight into a version of Whoville that feels brighter, louder, and somehow even more alive than ever before. And it's here that the heart of the story unfolds with a mix of humor, warmth, and that little bit of mischief we all secretly crave during the Christmas season. This time, the film takes the classic Dr. Seuss tale and stretches it into a full-blown emotional journey, showing us not just what the Grinch does, but why he does it, building a layered, surprisingly human portrait of a character who spent way too long hiding behind bitterness and pretending that nothing in the world can touch him. The movie kicks off by throwing us right into the rhythm of Whoville, a place where Christmas isn't just a holiday, it's a lifestyle, practically a religion, a full-scale event where lights, Music, decorations, and cheer explode from every corner, and for the Grinch, living alone in his cave with nothing but his gadgets and his loyal dog Max, all of this joy is basically torture wrapped in ribbon. The plot starts to speed up the moment the Whos announce their biggest celebration yet: triple the lights, triple the food, triple the noise, and something inside the Grinch snaps just a little more, because in his mind, Christmas is nothing but a reminder of everything he never had. And so he decides he's done. He wants the noise gone, the cheer gone, the whole holiday erased from the calendar, and he comes up with the most outrageous plan possible: steal Christmas, literally. Meanwhile, the film weaves in the story of Cindy Lou Who, a kid with more heart and determination than most adults, who's trying to get Santa to help her overworked single mother. Her kindness acts like the emotional counterweight to the Grinch's growing resentment. And the beautiful thing is that the movie doesn't rush their connection. It lets their stories run side by side until the moment they collide, and when they do, everything shifts. As the Grinch pulls together an absurdly complex Christmas stealing operation, building inventions, training Max, even borrowing a reindeer who may be the laziest creature ever animated, the film blends comedy with genuine pathos, showing us a character who's not evil, just lonely, afraid, and convinced the world left him behind. And so the night comes. Dressed as Santa, riding his makeshift sleigh, the Grinch descends on Whoville and executes his plan with precision, sweeping through chimneys, houses, trees, stockings, food, presents, every last scrap of joy. But where the story flips isn't in the heist. It's in the aftermath, when he waits on the mountain for the Whos to discover what he's done. Instead of the wailing he imagines, the Whos come together and sing, proving that Christmas isn't about stuff. It's about connection. And that moment cracks something open inside him, something that's been sealed off for years. From there, the film becomes a story of transformation, of letting go of bitterness piece by piece as the Grinch returns everything he stole and finally accepts Cindy Lou's invitation to dinner, stepping into a space he's avoided: his life, belonging. The movie ultimately tells the story of a broken heart learning how to beat again, wrapped in humor, warmth, and a message that hits harder than you expect, reminding us that even the coldest walls around us can be melted by a little kindness and a little courage. It's that blend of spectacle, emotion, and character that gives the 2018 version its unique spark, pulling the viewer not just into a Christmas tale, but into a redemption story that feels bigger, deeper, and more modern than the versions that came before, making it a perfect continuation of the themes we've been digging into all along, and setting the stage for an unforgettable voiceover that keeps the audience glued, waiting for every word like the next gift under the tree, and carrying that momentum forward as if we're just peeling back the next layer of this wild, emotional, candy-coated journey. The Grinch, 2018, becomes even more gripping once you start looking at the characters who bring this whole world to life. Because behind every moment of comedy, every shot of warmth, every beat of redemption, there are voices that shape the way we feel about these characters long before we even realize it. At the center of it all is the Grinch himself, voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch. And what's so fascinating is how he doesn't just play the Grinch, he reshapes him, giving him this sharper but strangely more vulnerable edge, like a guy who's built himself out of sarcasm and snark just to keep the world from touching all the hurt he's been carrying since childhood. Cumberbatch slides between grumpy growls, slick humor, and those rare choked-up moments in a way that makes the Grinch feel like a fully living, breathing character, not just a holiday icon with a green attitude problem. Then you've got Cindy Lou Who, voiced with this perfect mix of innocence and fiery determination by Cameron Seeley, and she becomes the emotional anchor of the entire story. She's not just some cute kid running through scenes, she's the heartbeat of Whoville, the one person whose kindness cuts right through the Grinch's armor without even trying, and Seeley's voice gives her that real kid honesty that makes you believe every word she says. Right next to her is Donna Who, Cindy Lou's mom, brought to life by Rashida Jones, who gives the character this warm, grounded, everyday hero vibe, the kind of single mom who holds her entire world together with love, coffee, and zero sleep. And Jones's performance makes her instantly relatable to anyone who's ever watched someone give everything for their family. Over in the realm of pure comedy, we get Bricklebomb, played with absolute joy by Kenan Thompson, a guy who feels like the human embodiment of holiday cheer turned up to maximum brightness. Thompson makes Bricklebomb the kind of character you can't help but smile at. Someone so relentlessly positive that even the Grinch can't resist being confused by him. And then there's the narration, which is a huge part of the movie's charm. Pharrell Williams steps in as the storyteller, giving everything that smooth, laid-back energy that makes the whole world feel a little cooler, a little more modern, and somehow even more magical. His voice guides the film like a steady hand on the wheel, pulling us deeper into the story without ever overshadowing the characters themselves. Of course, we can't forget Max, the Grinch's loyal dog, who doesn't speak but somehow steals every scene he's in. Through pure expression, movement, and timing, Max becomes the emotional balance for the Grinch, a silent reminder that even the coldest hearts keep someone close. They just don't always admit it. Add in Fred, the reindeer, a gigantic, lovable creature who waddles through the film with the energy of someone who showed up for snacks, not a mission, and suddenly the world feels even richer. All these performances fuse together into a cast that doesn't just fill the movie, they elevate it, shaping Whoville and the Grinch's lonely cave into spaces we understand on a gut level. And as all these characters collide, cynicism meeting innocence, loneliness meeting community, snark meeting hope, the story tightens into something bigger than a simple Christmas tale, something that pulls the viewer from one voice, one moment, one emotional beat to the next until they're wrapped in the world without even realizing how deep they've fallen into it. And sliding deeper into the heart of everything we've already uncovered, the real magic of the Grinch 2018 doesn't just sit in its characters or its visual style, but in the themes that quietly weave themselves through every scene, turning what looks like a simple holiday story into something with real emotional weight, something that hits people of all ages and places they didn't expect. At its core, this movie is a study of loneliness, of what happens when someone builds walls so high around themselves that even they forget why they put them up in the first place. The Grinch isn't born cruel or cold. He's shaped by years of isolation, by feeling left out, unseen, forgotten, and the film shows that pain without turning him into a villain. It turns him into a human being, even if he's wrapped in green fur. But right beside that loneliness is the movie's biggest message. Connection heals. Not instant fixes, not glittery miracles, just steady, real connection. Cindy Lou's kindness isn't loud or dramatic. It's small, simple, genuine. And in a world where the Grinch has convinced himself that everyone is out to hurt him, her warmth becomes the first crack in his armor. That's where the film hits a deeper truth. Kindness isn't weakness, it's power. The kind of power that slowly rewires someone who's forgotten what it feels like to be cared for. Another major theme the movie leans into is the idea that holidays aren't about stuff, they're about people. Whoville losing its presents is the exact moment that reveals what Christmas actually means to them. Because instead of collapsing into despair, they choose togetherness. They sing, they gather. They prove, without trying, that joy doesn't come from decorations or gifts, but from the community that surrounds them. And that moment is what forces the Grinch to see what he's been missing his whole life. There's also a lesson about empathy running under everything. This reminder that you never really know what someone is going through, how their past shaped them, or what hurt they're carrying around. The film practically whispers that before you judge someone, before you slap a label on them, try understanding them. Even someone who seems impossible to love might just be protecting a wound they don't know how to talk about. And as the story unfolds, another message rises up. People can change, not because they're forced to, not because someone shames them into it, but because one moment of genuine emotion, a song, a gesture, an invitation, can flip something inside them. The Grinch's transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming the person he always could have been if someone had reached out sooner. The film goes even further, touching on themes of family, not just the one you're born into, but the one you choose. Cindy Lou's family, the Who's, even Max and Fred, they show that family is built from loyalty, warmth, and effort, not blood. And in its own quiet way, the movie reminds us that you don't have to stay who pain made you. You can step out of the shadows, walk into the light, and start again. All these themes, loneliness, community, empathy, healing, the true meaning of the holidays, blend together into a story that feels bigger than a Christmas movie, something that keeps the viewer leaning in, waiting for the next emotional punch, the next spark of truth, the next moment where everything clicks into place. And by the time the Grinch sits down at that dinner table, surrounded by the very people he once resented, you realize this entire journey has been about finding your way back to the world, one small act of kindness at a time. Pushing everything we've uncovered so far a little further, the relationships in the Grinch 2018 unfold like this slow, surprising, emotional thaw, the kind that sneaks up on you and shifts the whole energy of the story without ever calling attention to itself. And watching these connections evolve is honestly one of the most satisfying parts of the entire film. It all starts with the Grinch and the world around him being locked in this unspoken standoff. He's convinced that Whoville wants nothing to do with him, while the Whos barely notice him at all, treating him like a cranky neighbor rather than a monster. That distance is the foundation of every relationship he touches. At first, his bond with Max is the only thing even close to healthy, and it's basically the emotional lifeline he doesn't realize he depends on. Max isn't just a pet. He's the one creature who shows unconditional loyalty to someone who gives the bare minimum back. But even there, you can see the Grinch soften across the movie, little gestures, small thanks, moments where he lets himself appreciate Max instead of just using him as a helper. It's subtle, but it shows the cracks forming in his emotional walls long before the big transformation hits. Then there's the wild contrast of its interactions with the Poes, especially Bricklebam, who basically acts like the Grinch's self-appointed best friend and refuses to take the hint. The Grinch's annoyance slowly shifts from "I can't stand this guy" to "I still don't like this, but I don't hate it as much as I pretend." And by the end, you sense that he's starting to accept that maybe not everyone is out to make him miserable. But the heart of the movie's relational evolution, the part that really flips the entire story, is the bond between the Grinch and Cindy Lou Who. Their relationship begins with absolute misunderstanding. Cindy Lou sees the world through this lens of pure goodness, and the Grinch sees everything through a filter of past pain. So the moment they cross paths, it's like kindness colliding with defensiveness. She approaches him with genuine warmth, and he tries to brush her off like she's another piece of noise in his life. Yet she becomes the emotional force that quietly shifts him without even meaning to. Every interaction between them has this push and pull energy, the Grinch trying to stay cold while Cindy Lou keeps melting that ice one tiny moment at a time. And the beautiful thing is that she never tries to fix him. She just treats him like a person who deserves decency, and that alone changes him more than anything else. By the time he steals Christmas and watches the Whos come together anyway, the emotional foundation between him and Cindy Lou is already so strong that when she reaches out to him afterward, inviting him into her home, he can't hide behind his old bitterness anymore. That dinner scene becomes the payoff of their entire relationship. The Grinch accepting connection instead of running from it, letting himself be part of something bigger, letting himself be known. Even his relationship with Whoville transforms from something adversarial into something genuinely warm. After years of believing that the world had no place for him, he suddenly finds himself surrounded by people who welcome him without hesitation. And that acceptance rewrites every old narrative he held about himself. By the end, every relationship around him, Max, Cindy Lou, Donna, Bricklebam, the entire community, has evolved into this web of connection that replaces isolation with belonging. And that shift doesn't just change the Grinch, it changes the entire emotional tone of the movie. What began as a story about a lonely outsider becomes a story about a man rediscovering humanity, rewriting his own identity through the relationships he once pushed away. And it's that transformation, that emotional buildup through each evolving bond that keeps the viewer hooked, leaning closer, waiting to see who the Grinch becomes next, and how far he can go once he finally lets people in. Flowing right out of how those relationships shift and reshape the Grinch's entire world, the character development in The Grinch 2018 stands out because it doesn't hit you over the head with dramatic speeches or forced emotional moments. Instead, it unfolds in this slow, natural, almost sneaky way, like watching someone thaw after years of living in emotional winter. What makes the protagonist so compelling is that the movie refuses to paint him as a flat villain or a simple grouch. It digs into the hurt behind the attitude, the loneliness behind the sarcasm, and it lets us see the person hiding under all that green fur long before he realizes we can see him. From the very beginning, the Grinch is written as someone who has built his whole identity on survival, not cruelty. His bitterness isn't cartoon evil, it's a defense mechanism, the kind you build when the world stops feeling safe and you convince yourself you don't need anyone. The film gives us tiny glimpses into his past, not enough to make him tragic, but enough to make his grumpiness make sense. And this approach, light, subtle, understated, keeps the character grounded instead of melodramatic. What really pulls the viewer in is how the movie lets us watch his emotional walls crack bit by bit in ways that feel earned. The Grinch doesn't wake up one morning suddenly wanting to be kind. He grows through frustration, confusion, irritation, and those accidental moments of softness that sneak up on him when he isn't paying attention. Whether it's Max's unconditional loyalty, Bricklebaum's ridiculous friendliness, or Cindy Lou's innocent compassion, every small interaction chips away at him without him even noticing. And the audience gets to witness this quiet struggle between who he is and who he could be. The brilliance of his character arcs is that it's not a straight line. He tries to push people away even harder the closer he gets to change. His plan to steal Christmas isn't just mischief. It's his last desperate attempt to prove to himself that he doesn't need anybody, that joy and connection and community are all overrated. But when he sees the Whos come together even after he's robbed them blind, that's the moment everything inside him snaps. Not in an explosive, dramatic way, but in this deeply human realization. He was wrong about the world and probably wrong about himself too. What makes him so compelling is the raw vulnerability hiding under all the humor and theatrics. He's someone who wants connection but doesn't know how to ask for it. Someone who's been hurt and decided it was easier never to feel anything again. Someone who acts like the world has rejected him so many times that he might as well reject it first. And when he finally lets himself step toward the light, when he returns the gifts, apologizes, and accepts Cindy Lou's invitation, his transformation hits harder because we understand where he started. His development works because it respects the emotional truth behind him. People don't change because someone lectures them. They change because they're finally given a chance to feel safe. By the end, the Grinch becomes compelling, not because he's suddenly nice, but because he's finally honest with himself and with everyone around him. His growth isn't flashy, it's deeply human, and that's what grips the audience, pulls them in, and keeps them listening as his story unfolds. Rolling from the Grinch's emotional evolution straight into the way the film presents his world, the visual style and animation quality of The Grinch 2018 play a massive role in why the story lands the way it does. Because this movie isn't just animated. It's crafted, sculpted, polished with a level of detail that turns every frame into something you could pause, screenshot, and hang on a wall. The whole visual approach blends Seussian exaggeration with a kind of modern cinematic smoothness, creating this universe that feels whimsical without ever slipping into kiddie territory. Everything is curved, rounded, oversized, and soft-edged, but polished in a way that makes it look lived in, tangible, and real enough to touch. Whoville in this version practically bursts off the screen, all warm colors, glowing lights, and snowy textures layered so beautifully you can almost feel the crunch under your feet. The city is busy, but never chaotic, detailed, but never messy, and the animators use color like a language. Bright, warm, joyful hues for the Whos, and cooler, sharper tones for the Grinch's cave high up on Mount Crumpet. The contrast visually tells the story before a single line is spoken. One world radiates connection, the other echoes loneliness. And then there's the character animation, which carries the entire emotional weight of the film. The Grinch's expressions alone are a masterclass in micro-acting. Tiny eyebrow shifts, subtle eye movements, the way his mouth curls not just in sarcasm, but in the moments when he's fighting back emotions he doesn't want to feel. Max, even without speaking, communicates through body language that's so human it almost tricks you into forgetting he's animated. And the Whos move with this bouncy, rhythmic energy that captures the spirit of holiday excitement without ever feeling too chaotic or cartoony. The lighting is another thing the film absolutely nails. Scenes glow with warm, candle-lit colors in Whoville, giving everything a cozy, festive vibe, while the Grinch's lair is washed in colder greens and icy blues, highlighting the emotional distance he's built around himself. When the film wants to shift a mood, the lighting shifts with it. Darker during his planning sequences, soft and golden in Cindy Lou's home, and sparkling bright during the finale, where warmth finally meets the Grinch instead of him hiding from it. The cinematography is surprisingly cinematic for an animated holiday film. The camera glides, swoops, tracks, and pulls, focus like a live-action movie, giving action scenes this smooth adrenaline and emotional scenes this grounded intimacy. When the Grinch rides his sleigh down the mountain, the angles mimic real drone shots, making the moment feel big and thrilling. When Cindy Lou talks to her mom quietly, the camera pulls in close, giving it a rawness you don't usually see in bright family films. Even the simple shots, like sunrise over Whoville, are framed with real composition, not just thrown together. The world feels deep, layered, three-dimensional, and full of life. On top of all that, the textures in the movie are wild. The Grinch's fur looks soft enough to ruffle. Max's ears bounce with real-world physics. The snow has weight and crunch and sparkle, and the fabrics, scarves, coats, blankets, look like you could run your hand across them. That attention to detail is what gives the whole movie its personality. Nothing feels half done, nothing feels rushed. Everything, from the twinkling lights to the smoke curling from chimneys to the chaotic pile of inventions in the Grinch's home, feels intentionally placed to pull you deeper into the world. And so the visual experience becomes more than a backdrop. It becomes part of the storytelling itself. The cinematography shows emotion. The animation shows character. The colors show meaning. Together, they create a film that's not just watched but felt, gripping enough to keep viewers hooked even if they've seen the story 100 times before. It's a visual feast that keeps feeding the narrative, keeping the audience locked in, wanting more, waiting to see what beautiful shot or emotional detail the next frame will reveal. Carrying that same energy from the film's visual world straight into its sound, the music in The Grinch, 2018, becomes one of those quiet powerhouse elements that you don't always notice right away. But once you tune into it, you realize just how much it's steering the whole emotional flow of the movie. The soundtrack isn't just background noise, it's like this invisible guide, shaping how you feel about every moment, lifting scenes when they need warmth, pushing the comedy when it needs a spark, and settling into something soft when the story finally lets the Grinch's walls come down. The score was composed by Danny Elfman, and if you know anything about his style, you already understand why this movie's sound hits the way it does. Elfman has that signature blend of whimsy, mystery, and grand emotional color, and he uses it here to build a soundscape that feels both classically Grinch and totally modern at the same time. His music dances through scenes with a kind of playful mischief, light strings, quirky woodwinds, bouncy rhythms, perfect for capturing the Grinch's sneaky personality, especially in the early parts of the film where he's plotting, grumbling, or just being a sarcastic menace. But at the same time, Elfman layers in these softer, almost delicate melodies that reveal the emotional truth underneath the comedy, hinting at the loneliness beneath the Grinch's attitude long before the story explicitly shows it. It's that blend, goofy charm on the surface, emotional honesty underneath, that makes the soundtrack so effective because it mirrors the protagonist himself. On top of the score, the movie also weaves in original songs and a fresh hip-hop influenced energy that sets this version of the story apart from earlier adaptations. Pharrell Williams narrates the film, and his laid-back tone naturally pairs with the more modern musical choices sprinkled throughout. You get this fusion of classic Christmas vibes mixed with beats, rhythms, and arrangements that give the movie a contemporary pulse, a spark of youth and fun that makes Whoville feel alive and current. Even the reimagined "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" gets a modern spin, turning a nostalgic classic into something bold and unexpected, adding swagger to the Grinch's persona instead of playing it straight. What makes the soundtrack really shine is how tightly it connects to the character development. When the Grinch is isolated, the music turns quieter, colder, almost hollow. When he's scheming, the score tiptoes and prances like it's sneaking through the snow with him. When Cindy Lou shows kindness, the music softens, warms, opens up. And when the Who's sing on Christmas morning, even with everything taken from them, the music swells with this emotional clarity that lands right in the chest. It's the turning point for the Grinch, and the soundtrack treats it like a sunrise breaking through a long, dark winter. That emotional rise continues right into the finale, where the music becomes richer, fuller, brighter, almost like the score itself grows a heart 3 sizes larger. Every melody stitching itself around the Grinch's transformation reinforces the idea that this world, this community, this Christmas spirit is something he's finally letting himself feel. The music doesn't just support the story, it tells the story. It fills the spaces between the lines, pulls the audience deeper into the character's mind and wraps every moment in a sound that amplifies the emotion rather than competing with it. It's playful when the movie wants to entertain, heartfelt when it wants to touch souls, and joyful when it wants to celebrate. In the end, the soundtrack becomes a kind of heartbeat for the film. Steady, warm, a little mischievous, and it keeps the viewer hooked, leaning in, feeling every shift in tone like it's happening right in front of them. It's the kind of musical work that makes the story not just watched, but experienced. And just when you think the ride is slowing down, the whole conversation around how The Grinch 2018 was received slips in like the next natural chapter of this story. Because once you look at the visuals, the comedy, the voice acting, the music, all that polished illumination energy, the next question everyone always asks is, all right, but did people actually like it? Did it hit? Did it stick? Did it become one of those Christmas movies that shows up every December whether you asked for it or not? And the answer is surprisingly layered, because this movie didn't just pop into theaters and disappear. It made noise, it sparked debates, it pulled families in by the millions, and slowly, over the years, it carved its own little spot in the holiday lineup in a way that kind of sneaks up on you. Critics were mixed right out of the gate, no sugarcoating that. A lot of them felt it played things too safe, too soft, too polished, like it was smoothing out all the prickly edges that made earlier versions of The Grinch so iconic. They said it was light, pleasant, but not daring, warm, but not scorching, cute, but maybe a little too illumination-friendly. But here's the twist. Audiences did not care. Families rolled into theaters, packed seats, bought popcorn, and walked out talking about how sweet and fun and cozy it felt. The movie made a lot of money, serious money, which tells you people weren't just casually checking it out. They were ready for a holiday movie that felt modern, but still had the spirit of the original story. And that's where the whole classic or cult favorite question gets interesting, because this isn't one of those movies that tries to be edgy or weird enough to become a cult film. This one is more like the kind of movie that becomes a seasonal tradition without anyone formally announcing it. You know how some movies just quietly join the rotation? Like no big ceremony, no slogan, no dramatic fan campaign. They just end up playing on TV every December. They show up on streaming platforms' holiday sections. Kids keep rewatching them. Parents don't mind having them on in the background, and little by little it becomes part of the Christmas noise. That's exactly what happened here. It didn't dominate award shows, and it didn't become a critic's darling, but it absolutely became a comfort movie. And honestly, that fits the film perfectly, because the whole point of this version is warmth, softness, charm, and accessibility. It's not trying to be the wildest or the deepest. It's trying to be the movie you throw on while decorating cookies or wrapping presents. The one that fills the room with color and music and that slightly goofy, slightly sentimental vibe that the holidays are built on. Over time, and this is the funny part, those early criticisms about it being too safe actually turned into strengths for regular viewers. Parents appreciated that it wasn't chaotic or overly cynical. Kids loved that the Grinch was still grumpy, but not nightmare fuel. And the visuals aged really well, bright, silky, festive, the kind of thing that always looks good on a big screen TV. So, while it may not have crossed into stone-cold classic territory like some animated giants, and it didn't evolve into a cult oddity, it did something arguably more valuable. It became one of those go-to Christmas films people revisit without thinking about it. The kind of movie that just belongs in December the same way hot chocolate and mall crowds do. And that's the legacy it's building. Not loud, not flashy, but steady and loved, sliding into its place as a modern holiday staple that families keep coming back to year after year. And from there, it almost feels natural to peel back the curtain and look at how this whole thing was actually put together. Because once you understand how people reacted to The Grinch 2018, you can't help but wonder what was happening behind the scenes to shape a movie that feels this polished, this specific, this strangely gentle compared to earlier takes. And the moment you dive into the production details, you start realizing this wasn't some quick holiday cash grab. It was a carefully engineered project built by a studio that knows how to craft bright, clean, globally appealing animated films, and they approached this classic Dr. Seuss story with a mix of respect, modern sensibility, and that signature glossy style they're known for. The movie was directed by a duo, which already sets the tone. One bringing experience with pacing and character comedy, the other focused on visual polish and emotional beats, creating this tag team energy where every creative choice was double-checked for clarity and charm. The studio behind it, of course, was that powerhouse known for turning animations into worldwide hits, and they pulled in teams from all over the place. Modelers, animators, composers, designers, each one adding a layer of finesse. But the most interesting part is how they approached the source material. Everybody already knows the original book is beloved, super short, super punchy, all rhythm and personality, so stretching that into a full-length feature without losing the heart of it is tricky. This film didn't try to reinvent the wheel. Instead, it leaned into the core message of the book: loneliness, empathy, community, transformation, and expanded the world around it rather than tweaking the message itself. They built Whoville like this perfect holiday snow globe, gave the Grinch a richer emotional backstory without turning him into a tragic figure, and added side characters that could support a modern narrative without feeling forced. Everything about the production had that we're honoring the old, but we're not afraid to update it vibe. They stayed close to the spirit of Dr. Seuss, but weren't afraid to give the visuals a smoother, more digital, more contemporary glow. They made the Grinch expressive in a very today-friendly way, less sharp, more sarcastic, more relatable, because they wanted kids to immediately connect with him and adults to see bits of themselves in his grumpy but softening personality. And let's not skip over the fact that the studio invested real time and real money to make this thing look incredible in motion. Every snowflake, every texture on the Grinch's fur, every blinking light in Whoville, none of that just pops into existence. They had massive animation teams tweaking lighting, color balance, frame timing, camera movement, making sure every shot felt like something you'd want to freeze frame. Even the Grinch's cave wasn't just green guy lives in a hole. It was a whole mechanical system, a weird, cozy loner paradise filled with gadgets that showed his personality through the environment alone. What makes its creation unique is how it balances this almost nostalgic warmth with the kind of hyper-modern animation workflow that wasn't possible in earlier adaptations. They weren't trying to beat the classic versions. They were trying to offer a new angle, a softer lens, a holiday comfort movie for a generation raised on sleek, family-friendly animation. So the production of The Grinch, 2018, becomes its own story, a collaboration of directors who knew exactly what tone they wanted, a studio that knows how to build worlds people instantly fall into, and a source material treated like something sacred, but still allowed to breathe in a fresh form. And when you see that final result on screen, suddenly it makes sense why the movie feels the way it does. Smooth, charming, bright, and crafted with a kind of calculated coziness that fits perfectly into the holiday tradition it eventually became. And once you understand how uniquely this film was put together, it becomes a lot easier to break down what actually makes The Grinch 2018 hit the way it does, and where it stumbles a bit compared to the other versions people hold so close. Because every movie, even the most polished holiday gem, comes with its highs and lows, and this one is no exception. But the crazy part is how its strengths and weaknesses almost feed into each other, like the very things that make it stand out are the same things that keep it from going all the way to instant classic status. For starters, one of its biggest strengths is the sheer visual charm. The thing looks gorgeous from start to finish, with that warm, cozy, candy-coated aesthetic that practically screams holiday spirit. You drop into Whoville and instantly feel like you're walking through the world's most perfectly decorated Christmas market. Kids get hooked by the color and movement. Adults get swept up in the vibe. And the Grinch himself has this expressive, soft-edged design that makes him more emotionally readable than ever before, which is a huge win for character-based storytelling. And speaking of storytelling, another major strength is how they reframe the Grinch not as pure chaos and bitterness, but as someone who's hurting, someone lonely, someone quietly searching for connection in the weirdest, most backward ways possible. That emotional grounding makes him easier to relate to for modern audiences, especially younger ones who might not vibe with the harsher, mean-spirited edge of older versions. The pacing, too, flows smoothly, light, breezy, never too heavy, which makes it the kind of movie you can rewatch every December without feeling emotionally drained. But then, on the flip side, a lot of those same decisions are exactly what some people feel holds it back. For example, that soft, gentle tone also means it doesn't swing as hard creatively as the original book or the older adaptations. The Grinch isn't as wild, as mischievous, or as unpredictable. He's more hoodie-wearing introvert than holiday supervillain. And while that works for some, others miss the darker comedic bite. And because the film is so polished, almost too polished, it sometimes loses the weird, scrappy charm that made the earlier versions feel handmade and iconic. Another common critique is that the movie plays it a little too safe emotionally. It's sweet, it's wholesome, but it rarely digs deep enough to leave that jaw-dropping impact you remember decades later. There's no moment that hits as hard as the first time you saw the Grinch's heart grow 3 sizes or as wild as Jim Carrey's over-the-top performance in the live-action version. This one is more subdued, more controlled, which is great for comfort watching, but not always enough to carve out its own legendary place in the holiday canon. At the same time, what really helps it stand out among similar animated holiday films is its balance of modern humor with a surprisingly mature, emotional base. It doesn't rely on cheap gags or loud chaos. Instead, it leans into this peaceful, almost meditative Christmas feeling that a lot of newer holiday movies completely overlook. It's not trying to out-crazy anything. It's trying to soothe you, wrap you up in a blanket, and remind you that kindness is still a powerful story engine. But what makes it fall short for some is that it never takes a big creative risk. It's beautiful, but predictable. Funny, but safe. Emotional, but never heart-wrenching. It sits right in the middle, not too hot, not too cold, which can be both a blessing and a limitation. Still, at the end of the day, its strengths keep it in rotation every winter because people love a movie that feels good, looks beautiful, and doesn't ask too much of them. It stands out by being soft in a world of loud holiday movies. And if it falls short anywhere, it's simply because the bar for this story is insanely high. But whether you see it as a comfort classic or just a pleasant addition to the holiday lineup, there's no denying it earns its place as one of the more polished and heartfelt modern takes on a timeless tale. Smooth, cozy, and crafted with so much intentional care that you can feel the warmth radiating off the screen. Peeling back all the layers we've already explored, the visuals, the characters, the music, the reception, and the production, the core of The Grinch 2018 is, at its heart, a story about transformation, connection, and the messy, beautiful way people and green, furry misanthropes find their place in the world. The movie opens high above Whoville on Mount Crumpet, where the Grinch lives alone, surrounded by snow, solitude, and all the gadgets and gizmos he's cobbled together to keep himself busy and disconnected. He's grumpy, sarcastic, and fully convinced that the Who's below him, these cheery, noisy, endlessly festive people, are a pain, that they're happy only because the world has somehow overlooked his suffering, and that Christmas is nothing more than a loud, glittery reminder of what he will never have. But underneath all that green fur and sneers is a character shaped by loneliness, by being overlooked, by years of emotional isolation, and the movie doesn't shy away from letting the audience feel that. Then we meet Cindy Lou Who, a little girl full of curiosity, kindness, and determination. She's convinced that the Grinch might need help, that underneath his grumpy exterior, there could be someone who just hasn't been given a chance to be seen, and she sets out on a mission to understand him in her own sweet, unassuming way. Their worlds collide in a series of moments that are both comedic and tender. The Grinch trying to keep his peace, his home, and his life untouched, while Cindy Lou keeps chipping away, asking questions, showing him empathy, and treating him like a real person instead of a monster. Meanwhile, the movie builds up Whoville in all its chaotic, warm, candy-colored glory, showing a community steeped in tradition, togetherness, and the kind of holiday spirit that's impossible for the Grinch to ignore for long. The tension escalates as the Grinch, still deeply cynical, hatches a plan to steal Christmas entirely, thinking that if he removes the presents, the decorations, the noise, the joy, he can finally prove to himself that Whoville isn't special and that he doesn't need it. But of course, the movie isn't just about theft. It's about observation, reflection, and the slow unraveling of the Grinch's own beliefs about happiness, community, and self-worth. As he carries out his plan, the Who's below show resilience, singing together, celebrating each other, and demonstrating that joy isn't found in material things, but in connection, family, and shared experience. That's the moment the Grinch begins to crack. He realizes that his assumptions about the world, about people, and even about himself have been wrong all along. He sees that kindness, love, and community can't be stolen. They have a life of their own, and the Who's embrace it fully even without their gifts. By the time the climax rolls around, the Grinch is confronted with a choice: remain alone, bitter, and isolated, or step into the light, open himself to others, and finally accept the love and warmth he's been denying himself for years. The transformation is gradual, but earned. He returns the stolen items, joins Cindy Lou and her family, and finally allows himself to belong. What makes the story so compelling is not just the slapstick humor, the holiday spectacle, or the colorful animation. It's the emotional arc that underpins every beat. It's the story of a loner learning to trust, of a cynic discovering hope, of a misfit finding his place in a world he once tried to reject. The main storyline may be simple on the surface. A Grinch tries to steal Christmas and ultimately fails, but the movie layers in so much heart, so much subtle character growth, so much humor and visual delight that the journey feels alive, immediate, and emotionally satisfying. And by the end, the audience isn't just watching a Christmas tale. They're experiencing the warmth of change, the thrill of forgiveness, and the undeniable power of empathy, all wrapped up in a riot of color, music, and holiday magic that keeps you leaning forward, wondering what small act of kindness or burst of joy will come next, long after the credits roll. Zooming in from the story itself to the people or voices that bring it to life, The Grinch, 2018, thrives because of the way its main characters are crafted and the actors who give them soul, personality, and energy that practically leaps off the screen. At the center, of course, is the Grinch himself, this green, furry, sarcastic, and lonely misanthrope who's been living on Mount Crumpet, bitterly observing Whoville below. Benedict Cumberbatch voices the Grinch, and his performance is remarkable because he balances mischief, grumpiness, and vulnerability all at once. You can hear the sarcasm and wit in his voice, but when the script demands it, he softens, revealing the character's loneliness, uncertainty, and slow emotional growth. Cumberbatch's performance ensures the Grinch never feels one-dimensional. He's funny, relatable, a little exasperating, and ultimately deeply human in his flaws. Then there's Cindy Lou Who, the heart and emotional compass of the story, who approaches the Grinch with curiosity, bravery, and unwavering kindness. She's voiced by Cameron Seeley, who brings a blend of innocence, charm, and determination that feels authentic and relatable. Through her voice, you can feel her sincerity and compassion, which is critical because her interactions with the Grinch are the emotional anchor of the film. She's not just a plot device. She's the reason the Grinch starts to reconsider his worldview. Cindy Lou's parents also play supporting but memorable roles, grounding the story in a believable family dynamic. Rashida Jones voices Donna Who, Cindy Lou's mother, giving her a calm warmth and practical energy that balances the zaniness of Whoville, while Angela Lansbury voices Mayor McGurkle, bringing authority and subtle humor to the community leadership of Whoville. And speaking of Whoville, the townspeople themselves are animated with vibrant personalities, each slightly exaggerated but distinct, helping to build the sense of a bustling, festive community that the Grinch both envies and misunderstands. Even Max, the Grinch's loyal dog, while nonverbal, carries so much personality through the animation and careful timing, becoming almost a co-protagonist in how he influences the Grinch's actions and emotions. Additional voices, like Pharrell Williams as the narrator, add a modern, smooth, and playful flavor, bridging the classic Dr. Seuss charm with a contemporary energy that keeps the story feeling fresh and lively. What's fascinating is how each actor's vocal performance is carefully synced with animation, expressions, timing, and comedic beats, creating a seamless fusion where voice and movement feel inseparable. Together, this ensemble doesn't just tell a story, they elevate it, making the world feel alive, emotionally rich, and impossible to look away from. Every interaction, every line, every laugh or sigh builds toward the ultimate payoff. The Grinch's transformation from a lonely grump to a part of the community he once scorned, and the actors' performances make that journey compelling, believable, and most importantly, endlessly watchable. Flowing naturally from the people who bring the story to life, the heart of The Grinch, 2018, really lies in the themes and moral lessons it weaves through every frame. Because beneath the humor, the bright colors, and the playful antics, the movie is carefully exploring ideas that are both timeless and surprisingly relevant. At its core, it's a story about loneliness, empathy, and the way connection can heal even the most guarded hearts. The Grinch starts the film convinced that the world is better off without him, that happiness is something for other people, and that Christmas is all about stuff, noise, and showiness. The exact opposite of what he feels he deserves. That perspective sets up the central message. True joy doesn't come from possessions, decorations, or outward celebrations, but from being part of a community, from caring for others, and from opening yourself up to love and friendship. The movie explores that in ways both big and subtle. Cindy Lou, who embodies the idea that small acts of kindness and genuine curiosity about someone else can spark real change. Her insistence on seeing the Grinch as a person, not a problem, slowly chips away at his defenses. That's a lesson about empathy, about the power of understanding, patience, and giving people the benefit of the doubt, even when they seem unapproachable or difficult. There's also a strong theme of redemption and self-discovery. The Grinch isn't evil, he's hurt, misunderstood, and lonely, and the story shows that nobody is beyond change. By the end, his journey isn't just about returning Christmas gifts, it's about choosing to see the good in others, to embrace community, and to acknowledge that happiness is something worth accepting, even when it feels risky. The film also touches on themes of family and belonging, showing that everyone, no matter how prickly or isolated, can find a place where they matter. Max, the Grinch's dog, represents loyalty and unconditional love, a small but constant reminder that connection can exist even in the darkest, loneliest moments. The townspeople of Whoville, meanwhile, illustrate resilience, generosity, and the joy of shared experiences. They demonstrate that community isn't just about proximity. It's about support, understanding, and celebration together. On top of that, the movie sneaks in a subtle lesson about perspective. The Grinch believes Christmas is just about presents, yet he learns it's about spirit, togetherness, and kindness, reminding viewers that life and happiness is often more about how we choose to engage with others than what we possess. Humor, music, and vibrant visuals all serve to reinforce these ideas, making the lessons feel organic rather than preachy. By combining heartfelt character arcs with playful, lively animation, the film manages to hit both emotional and entertaining notes, ensuring the themes land deeply while still being fun to watch. Ultimately, the central message of The Grinch 2018 is timeless, that empathy, understanding, and connection can transform lives, that even the hardest hearts can grow and change, and that joy is found not in taking from others, but in giving, sharing, and embracing the warmth of community. It's a story that makes you laugh, makes you sigh, and leaves you thinking about the kind of kindness you can bring into the world long after the credits roll. Sliding from the themes and lessons straight into the way those ideas play out in real time, the relationships in The Grinch 2018 are what truly give the story its heartbeat. Because the movie doesn't just tell you about connection and empathy, it lets you watch it unfold in layers, in gestures, in glances, and in tiny moments that gradually transform everyone involved. At the center, of course, is the relationship between the Grinch and Cindy Lou Who, and it's a fascinating dance of push and pull. At first, he's irritated by her curiosity, annoyed by her persistence, and convinced that her cheerful optimism is naive at best and annoying at worst. Cindy Lou, however, approaches him with patience and genuine interest, asking questions, noticing small details, and refusing to see him as simply a monster or a problem to be solved. Over time, her persistence chips away at his cynicism. He begins to respond, not with sudden bursts of warmth, but in small, hesitant ways. A gesture, a softening of tone, a flicker of acknowledgement that he is seen. By the midpoint of the movie, their relationship has evolved from suspicion and avoidance into a tentative connection where the Grinch starts to feel accountable, even protective, for someone outside his lonely world. Parallel to that, the Grinch's relationship with Max, his dog and only companion at the beginning, also deepens. Max has been loyal from the start, silently sharing the Grinch's isolation, and as the Grinch interacts with Whoville, he begins to realize that companionship is about more than mere presence. It's about trust, support, and shared experience. Max becomes more than a pet. He's a mirror reflecting the Grinch's own capacity for care and attachment. Meanwhile, the Grinch's relationship with Whoville itself evolves dramatically. Initially, he sees the town as irritating, loud, and frivolous, a collective embodiment of everything he resents. But as the story progresses and he observes their resilience, joy, and unity, especially when he attempts to steal Christmas and sees them continue to celebrate anyway, he realizes that his assumptions were wrong. The town itself becomes a catalyst for his emotional growth, transforming from an external obstacle into a model of community and shared humanity that he gradually wants to join rather than fight against. Other relationships, like those with Cindy Lou's family, are quieter, but just as meaningful. Her mother's warmth and her father's good-natured humor provide examples of familial care that feel approachable and authentic, subtly showing the Grinch what a supportive family can look like without lecturing him. By the climax, all these evolving connections intersect. The Grinch returns the stolen gifts, joins the Whos in celebration, and steps fully into a world he once rejected. It's not a sudden flip, it's a network of relationships. Each small interaction, each act of kindness, each moment of shared experience that builds to his transformation. What makes these evolving dynamics so compelling is how the film respects timing and emotional truth. None of the bonds feel forced or rushed. Every change is earned. The Grinch's journey from isolation to community is mirrored in the way his interactions with Cindy Lou, Max, and Whoville shift from avoidance to curiosity to empathy to full engagement. By the end, relationships aren't just plot devices. They're living, breathing engines of emotional resonance, showing that connection is cumulative, patient, and ultimately transformative, and leaving the audience not just entertained, but emotionally invested in how each bond unfolds. Moving from the way relationships evolve, it's impossible not to zero in on the heart of the story, the Grinch himself, because The Grinch, 2018, isn't just a colorful holiday spectacle. It's a carefully structured character study that makes the protagonist both relatable and endlessly compelling. Character development here is handled with a combination of subtlety and clarity that keeps the audience hooked from start to finish. At the beginning, the Grinch is presented as a loner, cynical, sarcastic, and fully convinced that the world, and especially Whoville, is better off without him. But the film doesn't rely on cheap shorthand to define him. Instead, it gives glimpses of his past, of his isolation, of his coping mechanisms, and even small moments of curiosity or vulnerability that hint at a deeper complexity. Every interaction he has, whether it's with Cindy Lou Who, with Max, or simply observing Whoville from afar, reveals something new about him, layer by layer, in a way that feels organic. The audience sees his grumpiness as both shield and symptom, and that duality is what makes him compelling. You're laughing at his antics, maybe even rolling your eyes at his stubbornness, but you're also rooting for him because you understand why he behaves the way he does. The film carefully stages his transformation. It isn't sudden, it isn't telegraphed with flashing lights or an obvious moral signpost. It's built through observation, reflection, and small emotional breakthroughs. When he interacts with Cindy Lou, when he begins to notice kindness around him, when he sees that Whoville's joy isn't dependent on material things, he starts to question his own assumptions about happiness, belonging, and self-worth. Each step of the journey is marked by specific beats: the reluctant curiosity, the slight softening of tone, the small act of generosity that culminate in a full, believable transformation by the climax. What makes the Grinch particularly compelling compared to other animated protagonists is that he's flawed in a very human way. He's not evil, he's not immediately lovable. He's grumpy, sarcastic, and self-protective. Yet, the film invites the audience to empathize with him, to understand his pain and isolation, and to celebrate his growth as if it were our own. The combination of clever humor, sharp wit, vulnerability, and ultimately genuine emotional growth keeps viewers invested in every scene. Max, Cindy Lou, and the Who's serve as catalysts and mirrors, but the story never shifts focus away from the Grinch's internal journey. Even the visual and musical design supports his development. The palette shifts, the music softens, and the framing changes as his heart literally grows and his perspective expands. By the end, he's not just the Grinch who stole Christmas and then returned it. He's a character who learns to connect, to trust, and to embrace joy in its purest form. And that careful balance of humor, pathos, and growth is what makes his character arc feel earned, relatable, and compelling. He's a figure who entertains, challenges, and inspires all at once, keeping audiences glued to the screen as they watch someone they thought was untouchable slowly open up to a world he once rejected. Shifting from the story and the characters to the very way the movie looks, The Grinch, 2018, is a feast for the eyes in a way that perfectly complements its narrative. Because the visual style, animation quality, and cinematography are all meticulously designed to pull the audience into Whoville and Mount Crumpet like they've never been there before. Right from the opening shots, the film establishes this candy-coated, hyper-stylized world where everything glows with holiday cheer, yet retains a touch of whimsy and exaggerated cartoon physics that keeps it playful. The Grinch himself is a marvel of design. Every tuft of green fur, every expressive wrinkle, every subtle twitch of his eyebrows is crafted to convey emotion without relying solely on dialogue, making his grumpy, sarcastic, and eventually tender personality immediately readable. Whoville bursts with color and movement, buildings spiral in impossible ways, lights shimmer with layers of depth, and the townspeople are animated with a level of individuality that makes the community feel alive, bustling, and chaotic in all the right ways. The animation quality is smooth, fluid, and highly polished, reflecting the studio's dedication to modern CGI techniques while still maintaining a handcrafted feel reminiscent of classic Dr. Seuss illustrations. Lighting and color grading are used not just for beauty, but for storytelling. The warm, golden glow of Whoville contrasts sharply with the colder, shadowy tones of Mount Crumpet, visually reinforcing the Grinch's emotional journey from isolation to connection. Cinematography within an animated film might not always get attention, but here it's employed masterfully. Camera angles shift dynamically to emphasize the scale of Whoville's celebrations versus the solitary heights of Mount Crumpet, swooping and gliding through snowy streets, zooming in on character expressions at pivotal emotional beats, and even pausing on visual gags that amplify comedic timing. The combination of exaggerated perspective, depth of field, and playful framing makes every scene feel cinematic and immersive, as if the viewer is moving through a real space rather than just watching images on a screen. Furthermore, the integration of visual storytelling with motion and music enhances emotional resonance. When the Grinch experiences small moments of wonder or connection, the camera lingers just long enough to let viewers feel that shift. The lighting softens, and subtle visual cues reinforce the narrative without a single word. What makes the visuals especially remarkable is that they serve the story at every level. They entertain, they charm, they enhance humor, and they deepen emotional engagement simultaneously. There's a rhythm to the animation that mirrors the pacing of the story itself. Bouncy, energetic sequences highlight mischief and comedy, while slower, more intimate shots allow the character's emotional journey to breathe. It's a film that doesn't just look pretty, it feels alive, expressive, and carefully orchestrated to draw audiences into the heart of the Grinch's world. And in doing so, it ensures that every laugh, sigh, and moment of awe is visually amplified, making the viewing experience unforgettable, inviting, and emotionally satisfying from the first frame to the last. Flowing naturally from the stunning visuals and animation, the soundtrack and music of The Grinch 2018 are another layer of magic that make the story not just seen, but felt, because the composer, Danny Elfman, brings a signature energy and charm that perfectly complements the mischief, humor, and heart of the film. Elfman is known for his ability to fuse whimsy with emotion, and here he takes the classic Dr. Seuss world and wraps it in a musical cloak that is instantly recognizable, yet fresh, playful, and surprisingly nuanced. From the opening notes, the score sets the tone, bouncing between mischievous, sneaky motifs that mirror the Grinch's scheme and antics, and warm, lush arrangements that underscore moments of connection, vulnerability, and eventual transformation. The music works in tandem with the narrative, highlighting the Grinch's internal journey as much as the external action. When he sneaks through Whoville, the strings and playful percussion create tension and comedy. When he begins to soften, Elfman subtly shifts the instrumentation, weaving in softer melodies, gentle horns, and twinkling textures that hint at change and hope. Beyond the orchestral score, the film also incorporates songs, both classic Seussian tunes and new pieces, that reinforce the festive spirit while keeping the tone lighthearted and fun. Pharrell Williams' contributions, including narration and musical flourishes, add a modern, energetic layer that bridges the timeless story with contemporary sensibilities, giving the audience moments of rhythmic joy and emotional uplift without ever overshadowing the narrative. What's remarkable is how seamlessly the music interacts with the animation. Every swoop of the camera, every comedic gag, every tender glance is punctuated or enhanced by the score, creating an almost tactile rhythm that guides the viewer through the story. The soundtrack also supports the moral and emotional beats, reinforcing the themes of empathy, community, and transformation. Elfman's melodies swell as the Grinch begins to understand the value of connection, subtly cueing the audience to feel alongside him. It's a score that's clever, emotionally intelligent, and deeply integrated with the film's pacing and visual storytelling, turning every scene into a multi-sensory experience. In the end, the music in The Grinch 2018 is not just accompaniment, it's a character in its own right, shaping mood, enhancing humor, and deepening the emotional impact, ensuring that every laugh, every sigh, and every moment of wonder resonates long after the screen goes dark. Elfman's work reminds us that in a film like this, sound isn't just sound. It's the heartbeat of the story, guiding viewers through the highs, lows, and eventual joyous transformation of the Grinch in a way that feels effortless, organic, and endlessly entertaining. Taking all the elements we've explored, the story, the characters, the visuals, the music, and looking at how they landed in the real world, The Grinch 2018 had an interesting journey in terms of reception because it's one of those films that audiences and critics responded to in very different but equally telling ways. When it hit theaters, critics often praised the technical mastery, the animation quality, the visual style, the design of Whoville and the Grinch himself, and Danny Elfman's lively, emotive score all drew attention as highlights. The film's ability to modernize a classic Dr. Seuss tale while retaining its warmth, charm, and moral core was also recognized, especially in how it framed the Grinch as a nuanced, emotionally rich character, rather than just a mischievous anti-hero. However, some critics noted that while it was polished and entertaining, it didn't quite reach the inventive or boundary-pushing heights of earlier versions, particularly Jim Carrey's live-action take. They felt that the story played it relatively safe emotionally, relying on familiar beats and humor, and that some of the magic and unpredictable energy of the original material was softened for broader family appeal. Audiences, on the other hand, generally embraced it with enthusiasm, especially families and younger viewers who were drawn to the bright, candy-colored Whoville, the expressive Grinch design, and the playful tone. Box office numbers reflected this appeal, showing that while it might not have broken records, it performed solidly as a reliable holiday hit. Over time, the film's status has grown more nuanced. It hasn't quite reached the level of a cult classic, in the way the 1966 animated special or the 2000 live-action version did, because it's less about nostalgic surprise or wild energy and more about comfort, warmth, and approachable fun. But it has carved out its own niche as a modern holiday favorite, a movie that families return to year after year because it's charming, funny, visually dazzling, and emotionally satisfying. People love it for its ability to entertain while still delivering the heart of the story. That transformation, empathy, and the joy of connection matter more than presents or perfection. In essence, The Grinch, 2018, didn't redefine holiday classics, but it solidified itself as a polished, heartfelt entry into the canon, a version that feels contemporary while honoring the timeless themes of Dr. Seuss, and a movie that audiences can reliably watch, laugh with, and leave the theater or their living room feeling genuinely uplifted and in the holiday spirit. Its reception tells a story of balance, technically brilliant, emotionally accessible, and warmly embraced, even if it isn't the flashiest or most rebellious iteration of the Grinch legend. Building on how audiences experience the story and its reception, The Making of the Grinch 2018 itself is a fascinating tale of creativity, technology, and storytelling that adds another layer to why the film feels so alive and polished. Directed by Yarrow Cheney and Scott Mosia, the movie was produced by Illumination Entertainment, the same studio behind hits like Despicable Me and The Secret Life of Pets, which gave it that signature combination of humor, visual flair, and family-friendly appeal. The source material, of course, is Dr. Seuss's 1957 classic How the Grinch Stole Christmas, a story that has been adapted multiple times, but this iteration distinguishes itself by blending respect for the original text with modern animation technology and expanded emotional storytelling. What's unique about its creation is the way the filmmakers approach the Grinch not just as a mischievous holiday villain, but as a fully realized character with emotional depth, loneliness, and vulnerability. Something that earlier adaptations touched on, but this version leaned into more heavily. Illumination's animation team used cutting-edge CGI to bring Dr. Seuss's fantastical world to life, while maintaining the whimsical, exaggerated style of his illustrations, ensuring Whoville felt like a living, breathing place where every twist of a building, every swirl of snow, and every quirky resident had personality and energy. The production also involved meticulous voice direction, with Benedict Cumberbatch bringing a nuanced, layered performance that could convey sarcasm, mischief, and heart in equal measure, supported by a carefully cast ensemble that added warmth, humor, and charm. The music, led by Danny Elfman and enriched by Pharrell Williams' narration, was integrated from the earliest stages of production to sync with animation, comedic timing, and emotional beats, making the soundscape an inseparable part of the storytelling rather than an afterthought. Another unique element was the balance between staying true to the classic story and expanding it. The filmmakers added subtle backstory, fleshed out Cindy Lou Who's motivations, and explored the Grinch's emotional isolation in more detail, all without losing the simplicity and clarity that makes Seuss's tale so enduring. Even small production choices like how lighting changes reflect mood, or how Max the dog's subtle animations convey loyalty and emotion without dialogue, show the attention to detail that elevates the film beyond a standard animated feature. In short, the production of The Grinch 2018 is a masterclass in combining classic storytelling, innovative animation, careful voice performance, and emotionally intelligent direction to create a world that is visually stunning, emotionally engaging, and perfectly suited to both children and adults. It's a modern adaptation that honors its source while carving out its own identity. And that careful blend of tradition and innovation is what makes it stand out in the landscape of holiday films, giving audiences a reason to return to Whoville year after year, enjoying not just the story, but the artistry behind every frame. Looking at everything that went into making The Grinch 2018 and how audiences experienced it, it's clear that the film's strengths and weaknesses are intertwined in a way that makes it both memorable and, in some ways, familiar. Because what stands out immediately is its technical brilliance, emotional warmth, and playful energy. The animation is polished to perfection. Every movement is fluid, every expression on the Grinch or a Whoville resident is readable and exaggerated just enough to maximize humor and heart. And the visual style captures Dr. Seuss's whimsical aesthetic while feeling fully three-dimensional and alive. The voice acting, especially Benedict Cumberbatch's Grinch, brings a layered, charismatic, and highly entertaining performance that balances mischief, sarcasm, and vulnerability, making the protagonist compelling for both kids and adults. The music and score, crafted by Danny Elfman with narration by Pharrell Williams, complement the visuals and story in a way that heightens both comedic and emotional moments, creating a rhythm that pulls viewers through the narrative effortlessly. Storytelling is another strength. The film expands on the classic tale by giving the Grinch a more detailed emotional backstory, and by developing Cindy Lou Who as a proactive, brave, and empathetic character, whose interactions with the Grinch drive the emotional arc in a believable, satisfying way. Humor is consistent, often clever, and layered so that kids get the slapstick fun while adults can appreciate subtle jokes and witty wordplay. However, these very strengths are also where some of the perceived weaknesses come into play. Critics and some audiences noted that while the film is visually dazzling and emotionally polished, it doesn't break much new ground narratively. It stays close to familiar beats, and the comedy is safe, which can make it feel less daring compared to the 1966 animated classic or Jim Carrey's 2000 live-action version, both of which took more stylistic or tonal risks. Some felt that, despite the expanded backstory, the story occasionally plays it safe emotionally, smoothing edges that could have made the Grinch's journey feel more raw or unpredictable. Additionally, the film's heavy polish and hyper-realistic animation, while beautiful, can sometimes feel less personal or handcrafted than the simpler, more stylized look of earlier versions, which for some viewers reduces the nostalgic charm. What makes it stand out, though, is that it combines all the best elements of modern animation: stunning visuals, sophisticated CGI, expressive characters, and immersive sound design, with a faithful, heartfelt rendition of a classic story. It's accessible, emotionally satisfying, and a guaranteed festive hit that feels designed to appeal to a wide audience without alienating younger or older viewers. In short, The Grinch, 2018, excels in craftsmanship, character portrayal, humor, and musical integration, while its relative safety in storytelling and predictability in humor are the few areas where it doesn't completely reinvent the wheel. Yet even those limitations are part of its charm. It's a film that audiences can revisit, relax with, and enjoy year after year, knowing they'll get a visually rich, emotionally resonant, and delightfully fun take on a timeless holiday classic. Rolling right out of everything we've already explored and diving even deeper into the world of holiday storytelling, The Grinch, 2018, pulls us straight into a version of Whoville that feels brighter, louder, and somehow even more alive than ever before. And it's here that the heart of the story unfolds with a mix of humor, warmth, and that little bit of mischief we all secretly crave during the Christmas season. This time, the film takes the classic Dr. Seuss tale and stretches it into a full-blown emotional journey, showing us not just what the Grinch does, but why he does it, building a layered, surprisingly human portrait of a character who spent way too long hiding behind bitterness and pretending that nothing in the world can touch him. The movie kicks off by throwing us right into the rhythm of Whoville, a place where Christmas isn't just a holiday, it's a lifestyle, practically a religion, a full-scale event where lights, music, decorations, and cheer explode from every corner. And for the Grinch, living alone in his cave with nothing but his gadgets and his loyal dog Max, all of this joy is basically torture wrapped in ribbon. The plot starts to speed up the moment the Whos announce their biggest celebration yet: triple the lights, triple the food, triple the noise, and something inside the Grinch snaps just a little more, because in his mind, Christmas is nothing but a reminder of everything he never had. And so he decides he's done. He wants the noise gone, the cheer gone, the whole holiday erased from the calendar, and he comes up with the most outrageous plan possible: steal Christmas, literally. Meanwhile, the film weaves in the story of Cindy Lou Who, a kid with more heart and determination than most adults, who's trying to get Santa to help her overworked single mother. Her kindness acts like the emotional counterweight to the Grinch's growing resentment. And the beautiful thing is that the movie doesn't rush their connection. It lets their stories run side by side until the moment they collide, and when they do, everything shifts. As the Grinch pulls together an absurdly complex Christmas-stealing operation, building inventions, training Max, even borrowing a reindeer who may be the laziest creature ever animated, the film blends comedy with genuine pathos, showing us a character who's not evil, just lonely, afraid, and convinced the world left him behind. And so the night comes. Dressed as Santa, riding his makeshift sleigh, the Grinch descends on Whoville and executes his plan with precision, sweeping through chimneys, houses, trees, stockings, food, presents, every last scrap of joy. But where the story flips isn't in the heist. It's in the aftermath, when he waits on the mountain for the Whos to discover what he's done. Instead of the wailing he imagines, the Whos come together and sing, proving that Christmas isn't about stuff. It's about connection. And that moment cracks something open inside him, something that's been sealed off for years. From there, the film becomes a story of transformation, of letting go of bitterness piece by piece as the Grinch returns everything he stole and finally accepts Cindy Lou's invitation to dinner, stepping into a space he's avoided, his life, belonging. The movie ultimately tells the story of a broken heart learning how to beat again, wrapped in humor, warmth, and a message that hits harder than you expect, reminding us that even the coldest walls around us can be melted by a little kindness and a little courage. It's that blend of spectacle, emotion, and character that gives the 2018 version its unique spark, pulling the viewer not just into a Christmas tale, but into a redemption story that feels bigger, deeper, and more modern than the versions that came before, making it a perfect continuation of the themes we've been digging into all along and setting the stage for an unforgettable voiceover that keeps the audience glued, waiting for every word like the next gift under the tree, and carrying that momentum forward as if we're just peeling back the next layer of this wild, emotional, candy-coated journey. The Grinch, 2018, becomes even more gripping once you start looking at the characters who bring this whole world to life. Because behind every moment of comedy, every shot of warmth, every beat of redemption, there are voices that shape the way we feel about these characters long before we even realize it. At the center of it.